Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse. It's time to web up and decide who's the best Spider-Verse character. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I am Jason Web Warrior Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to the Mind University. I'm so glad that we could start this episode, like all Spider episodes, by singing the theme song, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or spider from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour. Except this week, we're doing a classic list variation.
Well, we've been doing a lot more lists lately in Geek History Lesson land. We've been learning with the students more. We've been telling the students more of our opinions and thoughts.
I kind of feel like if we're going to rank the types of episodes we do, number one is the classic lesson. Number two is the...
Who's ranking these?
I am.
You were okay.
Number two is, I said we, now you're shut out. I'm ranking them.
Yeah.
Number one is the classic lesson.
I have no part of this ranking.
You're going to sit there and you're going to like it.
Sure.
Number two is the list, and I think
completely disagree.
Number three is our fictional teams where we make up our rosters.
Oh, that's funny. I like the list the best. I hate to say it, students, but I do. I love the list.
They take a little less research, to be completely honest.
That's not the only reason. They are a little bit relaxed in the research, but
yes.
I like us getting into discussions and finding out, learning stuff, because this podcast is all about learning about our fictional geeky loves, and you know, this is a great way that I get to learn more about you, especially in your particular taste. Something that will come up many, many times, I admit, probably in the future of our lives, is where somebody's going to be like, hey, who's Ashley's third favorite Spider-Verse character? And I'm going to know now.
Also, of course, we're doing this episode to coincide with the Into the Spider-Verse animated movie.
I have a point of contention on this, Ashley. Can I take the floor, please?
I guess.
I don't know. You were doing rankings, so I thought you just told the podcast for me.
Sure.
You're driving the ship forward from here on out. So a couple years ago, you and I did a video that was, I think, the best Spider-Man stories or whatever.
Oh, sure, yes.
And in that
sounds like something we would do.
We picked Spider-Verse. And
yes.
In that video, this video was like 2 or 3.
Were people mad about it?
Oh, this is.
Okay.
I have taken the floor, Ashley.
Oh, sorry.
I have webbed up.
Hang on, I'm gonna sit down and shut up.
I flip. I webbed you away from the podcast. Okay. Like 2 or 3 years ago, we made a video. It was like best Spider-Man stories. I believe it was tying into Spider-Man Homecoming.
I think so.
Or Civil War. One of the two. And in that, we picked Spider-Verse as one of our best stories. I think because we did a top 10 list, I believe. In that video, I said there was no way in hell there was going to be a Spider-Verse movie. There are people to this day that are commenting, so no Spider-Verse movie, huh? There's not going to be a Spider-Verse movie. They're commenting on it like this, like now, like I made this video now. To everyone who I know, nobody listens.
It's none of the awesome.
No.
Everyone who listens to this podcast, I will say, is very respectful, especially in, just to drop it early, in our Patreon exclusive Facebook group where people get to interact with us directly. Everyone there is lovely, which I'm very happy about.
Taking back the floor.
Yes.
When I made that comment,
I think you meant in live action.
I was referring to live action, so I win!
Jesus, you've peaked so many times.
I don't care!
John Lennon.
Eat it, internet! I'm going to peak like John Lennon on the White Album. Get ready.
But I was going to say is that obviously we're here to celebrate Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Which you and I are very excited about. At the time of this recording, have not seen it.
We have not seen it.
So don't worry, we're not getting into spoiler territory. But we have done a number of lessons on spider characters, so we kind of had none of them left to do.
We have a very early on in our podcast, we did a 2-parter on Peter Parker.
One of our first 2-parters.
I think it's actually one of our better episodes too. It's a really, really fun. I go deep. I teach that lesson, but this is great because how fantastic is it that there are all these alternate Spider-Man-ish characters that we can talk about, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to find out. We're going to pick our best Spider-Verse characters. Is what we decided to call it. We only have 2 rules.
Yep.
And the only 2 rules is that we felt when making this list of the best Spider-Verse, best alternate Spider-Man characters, there are 2 Spider-Mans I think you cannot count. Peter Parker of the 616, the regular Marvel Universe. Because he's Spider-Man. Yeah. He's not alternate Spider-Man. He's Spider-Man. The other one that we debated about, but we eventually decided cannot count, is Ultimate Peter Parker. Now, the reason why, and I love the Ultimate Universe, as I've said many times in this podcast, the reason why we decided to knock out Ultimate Peter Parker is that essentially, when you get down to brass tacks, he's just younger Marvel Universe Peter Parker.
Who dies earlier. Spoiler for a 15-year-old story.
So, unlike other alternate Spider-Mans, there isn't a lot of differences. So we wanted to knock him out of the list so that the people that we're bringing up are truly different Spider people. Now, there's
that they've changed or maybe not necessarily improved on, but they've evolved what a Spider character can be.
And this also includes weirdo characters like Spider-Woman. Jessica Drew can be considered in this list. A bunch of other, but those are the only two characters that are not going to be considered in this list. So if you want to go make a list as well, please tweet it to us online. Ashley, where can they do that?
At GHL Podcast.
Yes, but that's basically it. So a lady who copied Peter Parker's origin, a clone could be on here. A cartoon character could be on here. Before we get into our list, Ashley, I want to talk to everybody real quick about our Patreon, because over at patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin, we do a podcast called Geek History Lesson Extra. And what are we going to be talking about over there this week on our exclusive Patreon podcast?
This week is actually very deeply tied into this lesson. It is going to be what we like to call our also-rans. It's going to be an exploration of the characters that we love, but who didn't make it onto our list, and probably discussing why that happened.
Yes. So you want to go over there. It's a podcast that you can only hear on Patreon. And I'm going to tell you, there's a character. My number 6 is someone that I desperately tried to get onto this list, but did not make it. I will not tell you who it is. Only the Patreons get to find out.
When I made this for the first time, I had 7 characters, and it was hard to cut the last couple.
I had 8, and I had to mercilessly cut down the last 4 because I love all these alternate Spider-Man characters, as you can see from my Instagram pictures where I post all my pictures of them. But anyways, patreon.com/Jawiin. That's where you can go listen to that podcast, and you can also help support the podcast. I think we've had a pretty long intro. I think it's just time to go right into it, right?
Let's do it.
Ashley, let's start off this list. What is your number 5?
My number 5.
By the way, somebody online recently asked if I do my numbers in lieu or in honor of the prisoner, and the answer is yes.
My number 5 is Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham does whatever a piggy can.
AKA, that was cute, Peter Porker, the incredible Spider-Ham.
Spectacular Spider-Ham.
Spectacular Spider-Ham, excuse me.
Or the
Sporcular.
Sporcular. You know Captain America is a cat in his universe, right?
Yeah. I love his universe. There's also a great episode of Spectacular Spider-Man, highly underrated animated Spider-Man show where it's all Peter Porker. So Spider-Ham made it onto my list because there is absolutely no reason that a character like this should work at all, and he's awesome. He's a joke. This character is a punchline. He was probably something that on the Marvel retreat, after a few too many drinks, somebody pitched and somehow got allowed to pass editorial and make it into the comic.
I think he comes from which is like
I believe you're right.
Which is a weird Marvel series. I could be completely wrong about this, so please don't quote me at this. Thank you.
But he comes out of, I believe, one of those, or what ifs, one of those alternate. And he could have easily been relegated to this one-off appearance and been a character that we never saw again. But every once in a while, we were like, hey, remember when Spider-Man was a pig? Kind of like what Howard the Duck was until Chip Zdarsky got his hands on him.
Yeah.
However, Marvel treated him as a serious, capable hero in the Spider-Verse event, and that's where I think he really gets this modern renaissance.
And he's the main character in Web Warriors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when Spider-Gwen gets her first spin-off series directly out of Spider-Verse, he becomes an integral part of her discovery of her identity as that universe's Spider-Woman, and readers get to see how valuable and insightful Peter Porker can be as a sort of a Jiminy Cricket type. I couldn't put him higher on this list because, in my opinion, Spider-Ham has never had a truly great standalone story.
Oh, and he deserves one.
He absolutely does. And there are writers who I think could do it. But how thrilled are we, Jason, that we get to see him on the big screen in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
I'm pretty jazzed. Spider-Ham on the big screen is one of those characters that I thought we would never see on the big screen. So,
and he's on a billboard that you see at work that you're very excited about.
I drive past this billboard, and the way the billboard is in LA, they have Spider-Ham on top of the billboard. So it's like he's popped out, and I just love that I get to drive past Spider-Ham like waving at me every day, which is so cool. It's right next to the 405 in Los Angeles.
And we have a Spider-Ham action figure, and a great one.
I just got it. I'm so happy. So actually, can I ask you a question? Because you've read more Spider-Gwen than I have. I've only read like the first 5 issues.
I've read all of it.
Is Spider-Ham in Spider-Gwen, is that actually Spider-Ham, or is it her imagination?
So when Gwen gets a head injury, her projection of Spider-Ham shows up, and he's there to sort of guide her or help her deal with difficult situations.
Yeah.
But that is based on the bond that the characters forged in Spider-Verse. And that's why a lot of the times when, for whatever reason, they all sort of enter that dimensional rift, Gwen and Peter Porker do have a real friendship, and you will often see them paired together.
Yeah, it's just a little interesting because, at the same time of that series, Peter Porker and Gwen were in Web Warriors.
Yes, yeah.
So,
but that's one of those comic book timeline things where you just have to go, I guess this is fine. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I also just I didn't want to miss up an opportunity to talk about Spider-Ham since the opportunity presented itself. All right, Jason, what is your number 5 best Spider-Verse character?
My number 5 is not Spider-Ham. I'm going to tell you that. Spider-Ham did not make it on my list.
Are there any animals on your list?
No. So what I look for with the Spider-Verse characters, I look for somebody who is alternate enough of Peter Parker, but can add to the mythos of Peter Parker. So whereas Spider-Ham is really cool, I think he's really cool because he looks cool.
Because he's a piggy?
Because he's a piggy. He has an interesting design, and the snout looks cool, but he doesn't really add anything to the mythos. So my number 5 is a character that comes from an alternate timeline, had her own book even, and was a forgotten character in the Spider lore. I'm talking about Spider-Girl Mayday Parker.
She almost made it onto my list.
Well, if you don't know, Mayday Parker is the future daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson, and she inherited her powers from her dad when she was a teenager. Now, she's interesting because she comes from this MC2 universe that is the Marvel Universe squared. It's supposed to be like 20 years ahead in Marvel timeline, and it actually came out and was successful before the Ultimate Universe, 2 or 3 years before the Ultimate Universe. And Spider-Girl was the only kind of breakout hit from the line. They tried a whole bunch of other books. I think they tried it was like A Next, and they did like an X2, or they did like an X-Men book.
Yep.
But Spider-Girl was the only one that worked. And there's just something about Mayday, and I think it's the idea of if Spider fans are out there like me, when they first announced pre-Clone Saga that Mary Jane was pregnant with a little girl, I wanted to see that baby. I really did. I thought this was amazing. And then what they do is that Mary Jane loses the baby when Spider-Man comes back after the end of the Clone Saga. And you see a minion of Norman Osborn steal the baby.
Yep.
So the idea is that May Parker is out there somewhere. And the fact that in this MCU2 verse, we get to see May Parker. She's alive, and she finds her Uncle Ben's Spider-Man costume in the attic and forms it to her. Another great thing about the MC2 verse of Spider-Girl, Peter Parker becomes a cop. He becomes a police scientist,
like Captain Stacy,
and also like Barry Allen, which to me I think was such great moments. But Mayday Parker, not only does she look great in that costume, it's one of those things we talk about in this podcast too, where sometimes seeing a female in a male's costume makes the costume look better.
Yeah.
Where Ben Reilly's costume looks so much better on Mayday than it ever looked on him. But that costume, by the way, is just a great design, designed by, I believe, help me out, who drew Mark Bagley. Mark Bagley is the one who designed that.
Jason stands Ben Reilly.
I do. And I like that Spider-Man costume. But Mayday, it's this girl living up to her dad and also trying to figure out her problems, and also at the same time trying not to tell her dad, who is Spider-Man, that she's Spider-Man. And there's just something about Mayday. And I like that. To me, it feels like whenever she shows up in a Spider-Verse story, it's a special event because she has kept her specialness, because she is the daughter of Mary Jane and Peter. Now, I know we have Renew Your Vows now.
Yeah.
I like Mayday better than the Anna. Anna is the other daughter.
I was surprised that...
Spinneret's Mary Jane Webling? I don't remember what Anna's name is.
I was surprised that they didn't just make that baby May. Mm-hmm. To me, that was the logical thing to do.
I think they didn't do it. And it was Dan Slott, because Dan Slott's the one who created the Renew Your Vows universe. I think they did it specifically to not... I think he knew Spider-Verse was coming because that was before Spider-Verse.
Probably.
And I think that he, made sure to not make a second May. I think he wanted 2 characters. So
cool.
Yeah. Mayday Parker, number 5. My number 5.
That's great. If you can get your hands on any of the retailer posters that were offered at that time, they look amazing.
They also made an amazing action figure of her in Marvel Legends. But Ashley, before we go on to our number 4, we got to talk about one of the amazing sponsors of this show. This sponsor is Lisa.
Yes.
Lisa is... Ashley, I got to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you wake up with aches?
Constantly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you easily distracted?
Yes.
Are you forgetting things?
I'm sorry, what?
Yes. Well, a quality night's sleep on a Lisa mattress, Ashley, could make all the difference. A Lisa mattress is the product of 30 years of experience. That's more experience than you have, Ashley.
That's true.
And hundreds of hours of rigorous... and they also have hundreds of hours of rigorous product testing. It's also more product testing than you ever done.
Yeah, that's true.
So, guys, Lisa, if you don't know, is this mattress company. They ship it straight to your door. It's a foam mattress, and you can shop conveniently online with free shipping, and you get 100 nights to try this mattress in your home. There's so many other things you could do on 100 nights. You could learn the piano. You could learn Spanish.
You could make web slingers.
You can make web slingers. You could learn how to sleep better. And Lisa is a mattress that is loved by more than 300,000 happy sleepers. Also, Lisa also donates 1 mattress for every 10 sold, so you can feel good about your purchase. Right now, you can get Lisa's best offer, which is $150 off the Lisa mattress, plus a free pillow. I would do so many things for a free pillow at LeesaLeesa.com/geekhistory and use the promo code geekhistory at checkout. That's LeeSA.com/geekhistory with the promo code geekhistory. So get to sleeping, everybody. Not on the podcast, Ashley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. What's your number 4, Ashley? Let's go. What number 4?
My number 4 is a character that we've actually taught a geek history lesson on before. So if you're intrigued by my pitch, go and Google that and listen to one of our old episodes. It is Cindy Moon, a.k.a. Silk. I'm going to be honest, and I think I talked about it on that podcast. I did not want to like Cindy Moon when she was first introduced as Silk right before Spider-Verse.
Yeah, right before Spider-Verse, yeah.
She appears for like a half an issue and then just gets lobbed into Spider-Verse with the rest of them. I felt like she was introduced too close to Gwen Stacy's Spider-Woman and that they could potentially be fighting to serve the same purpose narratively. But thankfully, this turned out to not be the case. Silk's costume is also absolutely stunning. Designed by Mingu Helen Chen, who designs a lot of things for Pixar. She did a bunch of character designs for Big Hero 6 and for Ralph Breaks the Internet. I love her. I think she's amazing. It's referential enough, I think, to the original Spider design, but by removing the cowl, I think they highlight Cindy's Korean origins and they give her a unique silhouette, which is something very difficult when creating a contemporary superhero, especially because Spider characters just look like they're wearing leotards or bodysuits, which is why you see the people who buy the $99 bodysuit with the design screen.
They are just leotards, basically.
Absolutely. They, depending on the costume, but arguably, like, there's not even any armor or padding in it. But so to be able, it's sort of that Matt Groening Simpsons rule, to be able to put them all in silhouette, you can actually pick Silk out, which I think is pretty incredible compared to a lot of the other characters. Having Cindy being driven to uncover the mystery of what happened to her family also helps to differentiate her and focus her narratives away from what basically every other Spider character is doing at any given time in New York City. I think having that purpose and that point of view is what made her so interesting right out of the gate. And when they took her to space, they really lost that.
Oh, God, they did.
I love the addition to her character that because she was bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter Parker, their pheromones draw them together. And like, they don't even really like each other. Like Cindy and Peter don't really get along, but they're just so hot for each other. And so by extension, And I talked about this in our Silk episode. To me, this means that she would be attracted to Ben Reilly, and I think that Marvel's missing a big opportunity not hiring Jason and I to reintroduce him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe or comics universe as a love interest for Cindy Moon.
He's in the comics universe right now because there is a Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider title.
That's true, but he's not Cindy's boyfriend.
That's true. He lives in Las Vegas now.
How do you feel about that?
I'm actually okay with it. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
He's in the classic costumes. That's all I care about.
Cool. Well, they took Silk's awesome costume with like the Elektra red bandana and they redesigned it and gave her a stupid yellow and gray one now.
Only for a while. She's back to it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That was only for an arc.
Because I was really mad about that. And they talked this big game about how it was more like a ninja costume. And I was like, but she's not Japanese, so she shouldn't be a ninja. Yeah. Cindy also, kind of like Miles, and probably in the wake of the success of Miles, brings some much-needed diversity to the array of spider characters that we have. Miguel does that as well, because the spiders tend to be white. And
because they're all kind of based off of Peter Parker.
I get it. But it's nice to see that there is room for these other characters. There's also the little girl with the spider robot thingy, but I don't know what her name is, so I couldn't put her on the list.
It's a variation of Peter Parker. It's like Patricia, something like that.
Petra Parker or something like that. So they're doing better about that. But so I had to put Silk on my list because even though she has a dumb arc where she goes to space, I really like her, and I like her friendship and working relationship with J. Jonah Jameson, because even though she is so similar to Peter, I think in the writing of her, they go out of their way to make her very different. And so the fact that J. Jonah Jameson loves her because she doesn't know how technology works because she's been in a bunker for a decade, and he calls her analog and gives her promotions, and he loves Silk even though he hates Spider-Man. I think that's a really fun examination of a lot of the tropes that we're used to seeing in Spider-Man stories, and it's cool that Silk's the one to give it to us. That's why she is my number 4.
You know, the great thing about this list so far is that I don't hate either of your choices or dislike them. Now, Silk is not on my list either.
That's okay.
But I like Silk. I think she's awesome. I like Peter Parker. I think he's awesome. That's the thing. Like, there's very few Spider-Verse characters that I dislike. We
could, maybe if we have time in this lesson, maybe it'll be our stick around. Maybe it'll be on the extra. We could discuss, are there any Spider characters we don't like?
Oh my God. We'll never remember that, but
no.
Sure. Cool.
All right, Jason, tell me your number 4.
Actually, I'm going to say a line of dialogue that this Spider-Verse character says, and I want to see if you can guess who my number 4 is.
Okay.
The die is cast, fool!
Spider-Man Noir?
No. I am talking about the best Spider-Man, the superior Spider-Man.
Oh.
Otto Octavius. It's become a running gag.
He's on my list, but he's higher up.
In Spider-Geddon.
Yeah.
That he keeps saying the die is cast.
Well, I'm going to spoil it. I'm not reading Spider-Geddon right now.
Well, you're waiting for the trade. I've been reading it weekly.
Yeah.
It's right now it's not as good as Spider-Verse, but I'm loving it because the Spider characters are talking to each other.
Great.
So here's the thing. Otto Octavius, you might be asking yourself, what the hell is he doing on this list? But there was a storyline, a very controversial storyline, where Otto Octavius brain swapped with Peter Parker, and Peter Parker died in Otto Octavius's body.
I believe it happened in issue 700.
It was issue 700, yes. And Otto's brain is inside Peter Parker's body, and he called himself the Superior Spider-Man, gave himself a pretty cool costume design.
Very cool
and
costume.
Then gave himself spider legs like his octopus legs, which is so awesome.
Jason, how many action figures of the Superior Spider-Man do you own?
Well, they've only made one, so I only own one.
Oh, I thought you did 2 of them.
No, I own the pop vinyl, which is right to your left, right there, as well. So through the course of all this stuff like that, Otto got his brain pulled out of Peter Parker's body, but because of the most recent clone conspiracy, he was able to attain a cloned body of Peter Parker, and now Otto Octavius is back in a Peter Parker body, and he's been calling himself the Superior Octopus.
Not gonna lie, kind of love it.
Yeah, but in Spider-Geddon, he put back on his Superior Spider costume for good, because there is going to be a Superior Spider-Man ongoing series now later this year, and the cool thing is they've tweaked his costume just slightly. So when he was the Superior Spider-Man, he had red like kind of tendrils like the Iron Spider.
Yeah.
No. The new Superior Spider-Man has the classic octopus arms, which it's such a good design. Now, this is an idea that shouldn't have worked.
Right. It's a bad idea. Doc Ock in Peter's body?
Well, when you say like, oh, I'm going to brain swap Dr. Octopus and Peter Parker, you're like, that sounds stupid. But seeing the story of Otto Octavius try to actually become a hero and try to prove himself was great. And actually, some of the best moments of the Spider-Verse event was when Otto Octavius knew how to do stuff better than Peter Parker. In the current Spider-Geddon event, it's a lot of Miles versus Otto Octavius, because Peter has been like sectioned off from the rest of them. So the real Peter Parker is like stuck. So he can't join the team. And so a lot of it is Miles trying to fight Otto for leadership until Miles realizes that no, Otto actually is the most tactical, because this is a guy that for years upon years upon years tried to figure out, how do I blow up Spider-Man?
Also, something that I'm just going to chime in because this is my number 3.
That's fine. Close enough.
Yeah, there you go.
Join in.
Something that I really liked about the original Superior Spider-Man storyline is they wait a good 5 or 6 issues until you get the sense that Peter's consciousness is still stuck in the body.
Yes.
Because, it starts with that hand twitch for the first time. I like that we got a chance to see Otto make the... he kind of goes through the question of, do you focus on the value of being a superhero, or do you focus on your civilian identities and your pre-laid plans? And watching him come to that discovery before Peter kind of vies for control of the physical body, I thought was really, really fascinating to read.
Also him setting up the spider bot so he didn't have to patrol the city all the time.
It's really smart.
Yeah.
Also, that title introduced a number of really wonderful supporting characters, like Anna Maria Marconi, who has...
he's still around. Who's
just been reintroduced right back into the Spider-Man ongoing storyline because she's so amazing. One of my favorite things about her is that she is a little person. And this really allowed the different series artists to like play with perspective. So sometimes she looked like just a regular sized lady.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. And I really wanted a happy ending for them, even though you knew Peter was going to get his body back. And then when she had to work with Peter Parker after, and it was weird.
Well, I'm going to give you some slight spoilers here. As it currently stands, and again, at the time of this recording, Spider-Geddon's about halfway done.
Yeah.
Right now, Otto, as the Superior Spider-Man, lives in San Francisco.
I know.
And he works at Horizon University, which is the spinoff of Horizon Labs, where Peter used to work with Anna Maria. Horizon University, Anna Maria is there, and Otto is there. He's like, I think he's changed his name. Like I think he's like Philip Smith or something like that. He's Dr. So he's joined the faculty in the attempts to try to rebuild his relationship with Anna Maria.
I want it to happen so bad. I really do. I also think that the Superior Spider-Man, the creation of this character, the fact that they pulled it off, deserves credit, because Spider-Verse is credited with adding or updating most of the Spider characters, but this title predates it by about 3 years. 3+ years.
Yeah, because the Amazing Spider-Man stops for the period of Superior Spider-Man. Superior Spider-Man goes 25 issues, and then when Amazing Spider-Man comes back, Spider-Verse happens like 7 issues later.
And I think the title and the success of the title deserves a bit of credit for why we were allowed to get to Spider-Verse in the first place, and why we were allowed to take chances creating some of these crazier, more out there characters. Because Silk and Spider-Gwen, I don't know if people would have signed off on them pre-Superior Spider-Man. If you can pull off Superior Spider-Man, you can pull off anything, and I think the value of the character from that perspective on Marvel historically is really interesting.
Well, that's the craziest thing about it, is that in the regular Marvel universe, they made Spider-Man a villain for 25 issues.
25 great issues.
And Superior Spider-Man at the time not only appeared in the Superior Spider-Man title line, but there was a spin-off title where he fought other villains. I can't remember. It's not Superior Foes of Spider-Man, because that's about Captain Boomerang. But there's another title like Avenging Spider-Man or something like that has Superior Spider-Man. And then
I can see the covers. Yeah.
And then there are issues during the time. Because Spider-Man was part of the Avengers at the time.
Was.
Superior Spider-Man shows up in the Avengers, and it's
also really funny.
Yeah, and there's points where Captain America is like, "What happened to Spider-Man?"
Yeah.
So like he affects the entire There is a period, there's a pocket of time in the Marvel universe where Otto Octavius is running wild as Spider-Man, shooting villains, killing villains, and and blackmailing J. Jonah Jameson, who at the time was the mayor.
Yeah.
This is I mean, for lack of a better term, this is Spider-Man's Nightfall. Like this is
I think that's a great comparison.
This is like the event that there's pre-Superior Spider-Man and there's post-Superior Spider-Man. But this is like kind of like the Clone Saga. Like this is one of those events that like here's the nail in the middle of Spider-Man's history.
It's crazy to think about, too, because I used to have, growing up, the Dr. Ock action figure from McDonald's.
Oh.
So it's crazy.
From the animated series?
Yes. So it's crazy to think that that character grew up to be a Spider-Man.
Well, it's the fact of the matter that, again, it's such a stupid idea, just like Peter Porker, but it works. And
I'm going to give Dan Slott, a lot of credit for having dumb pitches that turn out to be
that really work. But yeah, like the fact that he's going to get a new ongoing series, I'm like, yes. Like, I hope he never goes back to the fat Doc Ock.
I agree.
He eventually will, but I kind of hope it's another 10 years. Mm-hmm. Like, I hope we get another decade of Superior Spider-Man.
I also wonder if this informed something like White Knight.
Oh, interesting. How so? Oh, you mean flipping the Joker?
Yeah. Like, if the success of this, you could take that in. If you're Sean Gordon Murphy pitching that and being like, I know it's out there, but Superior Spider-Man went well.
Can I give you an opposite pitch?
Sure.
I think Superior Spider-Man is very informed by Batman Under the Red Hood.
Interesting.
The idea of this former sidekick, Jason Todd, becoming a good guy, who started as a villain, becoming a good guy. I think that definitely informed Superior Spider-Man.
Cool.
And that's about 10 years before.
You're right.
So
I'm always happy. I love Under the Red Hood.
So Superior Spider-Man was my number 4, your number 3.
So we're back to you, Jason. What is your number 3?
Ashley, we're going to talk about one of the very first alternate Spider-Men. Now, travel back and forward to the past. In the 90s, you'll get my reference in a minute. In the 90s, there weren't many alternate Spider characters. Generally, pre the 1990s, the Spider-Man would have stuff happen to him. He would turn into Captain Universe. Mm-hmm. He would get 6 arms. He would get web armor. Mm-hmm. He would do stuff like that. But you didn't really meet alternate Spider-Man. And by that point, you'd met the clone and all stuff like that. But I'm not talking about the clone. I'm talking about like truly like a person who wasn't Peter Parker who was Spider-Man. It's few and far between. Like at that point, we had Peter Parker, we had like the cartoons, and we had Peter Porker, who nobody gave a thought to in the 90s. Until 1992. And in the year 1992, we traveled to a year called 2099.
Oh boy.
And we met Spider-Man 2099 is how you actually have to say it. This is Spider-Man meets Batman Beyond done right. The greatest thing about this is that Marvel sometime in the 1990s decided, let's tell a story that's 100 years ahead of time, because 1999 is cool and it's in the horizon. It's 7 years away. Let's go to 2099. And they introduced Miguel O'Hara. And with Rick Leonardi, the first issue, and I can remember seeing this first issue in the comic book stores because it stood out. And I remember I got this issue for Christmas one year and it had a red foil hologram cover. I still have this issue. And Spider-Man pops out at you at this crazy red and blue skull design. It's not even quite, he has a skull design on his chest. He just looks so amazing. He pops out. And he is also, he is half Irish, half Hispanic, Miguel O'Hara. He is a brilliant geneticist who has nothing to do with Peter Parker, just the fact of he in the future tries to recreate the powers of some of the Age of Heroes people. And through the process of the project, his boss blackmails him. Again, we've done a lesson about Spider-Man 2099, which I think you should totally go listen to. And he gets addicted to this drug because in the future, corporations own everybody. Well, that seems far off, right?
Prescient, yeah.
But his boss enslaves him to this drug, and the only solution he comes up with is to put himself in the chamber and give himself powers, and he gets spider powers.
What's the name of his AI?
Lila, who looks like Marilyn Monroe. So he has a holographic AI called Lila, who looks like Marilyn Monroe. And then the series is about dealing with his mother, why his father died, his brother Gabriel, who's a felon. And I think, because many of the other 2099 series, because there were 4 that launched right out of the gate. It was Spider-Man 2099, Doom 2099, who was actually Dr. Doom from the regular Marvel Universe, sent into the future. There was X-Men 2099, and then there was Ravage. And then eventually Punisher joined, and Hulk joined, and also Fantastic Five.
I feel like Spider-Man is the only one that was successful. It's the only one that still has a title in the modern age.
That's the one that I was going to say. I was saying Spider-Man is the only one that transcended. Now, some people would argue that X-Men has as well, and I would agree with you. If any of the rest of them transcend, it's X-Men, because X-Men's kind of interesting, but mainly I think because of the cool designs. But Spider-Man, and the reason why I still love this series is because, and I credit this to Peter David, because he was the guy that wrote this series. Peter David made Miguel go on a real character's journey just like Peter Parker. So Spider-Man 2099 only lasts like, I think, 60 issues, which is about 5 years. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
No, I mean, not bad for most titles, you know. And I think the reason why everybody, once it was canceled, was like, bring him back, was like me, is because I'm very invested in Miguel. Miguel's a real person. And to be honest with you, I also credit this to, in 1992 and most of the mid-90s, a lot of Spider-Man fans left Spider-Man because of a little event called the Clone Saga, which is universally panned. But,
so glad Marvel made an omnibus of it.
Right, yeah, we just saw that in the comic book shop today. Yeah. But I think when people ran from Amazing Spider-Man, they looked out there and they felt Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2099. I think he held the torch.
I also think Spider-Man 2099 most directly affected the costume design of the DC character Sideways, because every time I look at him, that's all I can think of.
Yes. But he almost, until he came back very recently, like a couple years ago, he kind of became this cult character. Like every time they made an action figure of him, it sold out. And when he popped up in there was a video game called Shattered Dimensions. When he popped up, everybody went nuts. To be honest with you, like there was a time where I thought they were actually going to make a Spider-Man 2099 cartoon. Like that'd
be great.
He was that. Can you imagine how awesome that cartoon would be? It would basically be Batman Beyond Spider-Man. Please make it now, Marvel. And
cast Michael Pena as the voice.
He currently does not have a title in the Marvel, but his title literally just ended last year. And the fact that he got 2 new series recently, I think just speaks the popularity of this character. I think when you look at the alternate Spider-Verse characters, the alternate Spider-Man, you really have to give a lot to Miguel O'Hara, the Spider-Man of 2099. For as much as he started out as a joke, he was, for the longest time, the most popular alternate Spider-Man.
Cool.
And a lot of it, some of it is to his design, but
that's helped lots of characters.
Sure.
So I don't think that's to a detriment at all.
Yes, but that is my number 3, Spider-Man 2099. Not 2049, 2099.
Oh man, he's older than the Blade Runner.
He is older than the Blade Runners.
Younger than the Blade Runners? I don't know.
Well, something that's also younger than the Blade Runners, Ashley, is our second sponsor for today's episode, Simple Contacts.
Ooh.
Ashley.
Yes.
You wear contacts, right?
I do.
Is it annoying to renew your prescription every year after year after year, even in the year 2099?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to tell you about some contacts, because they are changing all that by using technology to make renewing your prescription and buying contacts super simple. Here's how it works. You use your phone, you use your computer, or you use your holographic assistant, Lila, and you can take Simple Contacts vision test in less than 5 minutes. They make it an app. You download your phone. It's very simple. You can do it on your couch. You can do it in your office. The airport, I would not suggest you doing it in the airport. This probably would not get you good results. Then a real doctor reviews your test in 24 hours, and if your vision hasn't changed, they write you a new prescription, and boom, you can order a fresh supply of brand new lenses to your door. No more appointments, no more waiting rooms, no more really bad issues of Highlights magazine from 1987 that are sitting on their table. We all know they're there. We hate them. We don't know where the doctors put them in their office, but they're terrible. And Simple Contacts is going to help us get past those terrible, terrible magazine reading choices. So to save $20 on your lenses, just go to simplecontacts.com/answers20, because, we give you answers and $20 off.
Heck yeah.
And then you're going to enter the code ANSWERS20 at checkout. Now, real quick, we have to mention that this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need to go to a doctor. Please go to a doctor. Guys, go to a doctor every year. Come on. Even the superior Spider-Man goes to a doctor every year. So Simply Off, get $20 off by going to simplecontext.com/answers20. Just enter the code answers20 at checkout. Give it a try. Thank us later. And then, read the show notes because you'll actually be able to read them with Simple Context's help.
True.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Ashley. We're in the top 2. Uh-huh. Surprised by any of my choices? Intrigued by any of my choices? Were you expecting Spider-Man 2099 to be number 1?
No.
Oh, interesting.
No, I still maintain that I know who your number 1 is.
Save it and we'll find out if you're correct. Or unless you want to reveal it right now.
No, we'll see if I'm correct or not.
All right, Ashley, who is your number 2?
I'm going to say very proudly that neither of my number 2s are white guys.
Wow, cool.
My number 2 is the Ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales.
Ashley, we said that you couldn't pick the Ultimate Spider-Man.
I know. We said we could pick Ultimate Peter Parker.
That's true. I like calling Miles the Ultimate Spider-Man. I think you should call him the Ultimate Spider-Man.
I agree. I think he should be in the Ultimate Universe. I don't like him being in the 616 universe, and I never will. No way, not
Who's Miles?
no how.
I don't know who this Miles guy is.
You taught the lesson on him.
I still don't know who he is.
Miles Morales is a
movie star now.
Yeah, he's the lead of Into the Spider-Verse. He's got the good hair. He is an African-American Hispanic boy who gets spider powers and has to deal with being Spider-Man in the wake of Peter Parker's death. There was no doubt for me that Miles had to make it onto this list, even though, like I said, my familiarity with the character is not as deeply rooted as Jason's. I know Miles more as a supporting character than as a lead, but I've always found him to be both capable and charming and a wonderful representation of what a modern Spider-Man reader is, and that's where I think the real value in him comes. Also, earlier, I gave credit to Superior Spider-Man for opening the door for creating crazier characters in Spider-Verse, and I think the unmitigated, rolling, continuous success of Miles Morales and his creation has opened the door for Superior Spider-Man for so many characters that have come after, and including characters like Kamala Khan, Lunella Moon Girl, and a lot of the sort of new, young generation of Marvel heroes. It all starts here. If Miles had failed, we wouldn't have those type of characters. We wouldn't have Kate Bishop, Hawkeye
where
leading a title. Sure there is.
Yeah.
But it's not
ours.
This one, which I think is really, really great. I'm going to say that I do think Miles Morales is the best thing that Brian Michael Bendis has ever created. Not sorry to Jessica Jones fans.
Okay.
Fight me.
All right.
Please don't fight me. Let's just be friends. And this was the first time I think that anyone other than Peter Parker has been allowed to put on the cowl without the reader knowing that at some point Peter was going to come back and could have taken over that role. And I would contend that that's the case with Ben Reilly as well.
Except for Spider-Man 2099.
Well, but Peter Parker didn't exist. Like, he is.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm playing, man.
Stop it.
Can I add something to your?
Sure. Yeah.
Miles Morales is my number 2.
Oh,
as
okay.
well. So we both tied on Miles Morales as our number 2. I agree for everything you said. The Miles Morales was a chance, a big risk for Marvel because Ultimate Spider-Man at the time was a very successful and well-selling title.
It's so sad.
Yep. And the fact that Marvel allowed Brian Michael Bendis to kill the Peter Parker in that universe, that storyline is so amazing. And the fact that Miles shows up, and when Miles shows up, at first, I remember when I heard they were doing this, I said the same thing. I was like, this won't work. This will not work.
Why did you only keep reading it on the goodwill of everything that had come before?
Yes. Yes, cool. I did. Because I trusted Ultimate Spider-Man. I'd been reading at that time I'd been collecting all the single issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, and because of the Ultimate Spider-Man being so good at that point, I was like, I will keep going. And I'm so glad I did. It's amazing. It's so good. They do not drop the ball. And to me, they do not drop the ball on Miles until they shove him into the 616 universe. Yeah. Because to me, again, Miles' strength is that he exists in a universe where he's constantly trying to live up to a dead Peter Parker who, because of Brian Michael Bendis' great writing, establishes that Peter Parker is the greatest hero of that universe.
Yeah.
It's the idea, like we talk about several times, with Bucky constantly living up to Steve Rogers. What a great, or Wally West living up to Barry Allen.
Yeah.
That's a powerful motive for your character, a powerful objective for your character to constantly live up to this person that they know they can't live up to.
And Miles is one of the characters that's been allowed the most room for growth and evolution, and because the creators dared to give him different powers.
Yeah, he has.
Than Peter.
He can turn invisible. He can sting people.
Yeah.
Also, we have to just say the same thing. Miles Morales has a badass costume.
Yes, he does. And it's just the inverted.
It's just an inverted Spider-Man costume.
Man, it's cool.
But it looks really cool. Now, I do have to, and I read this online in forums that I think is really dumb, but I want to pose this question to Ashley because this type of podcast we are. Ashley, is there any thought that Miles Morales, the African-American Spider-Man, wears a costume that is mainly black? I don't think so, but some people in forums think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, I just wanted to pose that question.
And that might be the point of view. I'm not African American.
Neither am I.
So that might be, I might be coming at that from a place of like privilege that would have literally have never occurred to me.
I have seen that argument come up online in a couple places.
I would argue that I don't think so.
Okay.
If people are really bothered by it, they should ask Brian Michael Bendis or the editor at the time. I really always took it that it was just the inverted spider costume, which I thought was a better idea for the Ultimate Universe anyway.
To invert it?
Yeah.
Well, either way, I think it is a badass costume. And actually, if you turn your head to the left, I also have a Pop
How many Miles action figures do you have?
2. I have 2 Miles. I have the Pop Funko and the...
and that's more than the Spider-Man 2099.
No, I have 2 Spider-Man 29s as well.
Okay.
But the sad fact of the matter is that for the longest time, they'd only made like 2 or 3 Miles. But now with Into the Spider-Verse, I love it. We walked...
I want the one where he's got the cowl off because I love what they do with his hair is so cute in the movie.
We walked into a Target
recently,
and they had a Miles Spider-Man mask, and it blew me away.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I've been saying this for years, I think even on this podcast, that I was like, they need to make a Spider-Man podcast.
I literally have that written in my notes that for years you have been saying that we need a movie with Miles and Peter, and you used your chaos magic and your dark magic, and you spoke it into...
I made it happen.
You spoke it into existence.
Miles Morales is the Ultimate Spider-Man, and I wish that they would just call his title The Ultimate Spider-Man from here on out. But he's so good. It's so interesting because he is this shot in the dark that just really works. He so works, and he's such a great character.
Yep.
So all right, here we are to number 1. Ashley.
Yep.
What is your number 1 Spider-Verse character / alternate Spider-Man?
I don't think this is going to surprise anybody.
I think I know exactly who it is.
It's Gwen Stacy.
Wait. No, actually, she was thrown off a bridge by the Green Goblin.
Only in Earth 616.
So wait, which Gwen Stacy you're talking about?
I believe she's Earth 35.
I don't care what Earth it is.
83.
But you're talking about Ghost Spider.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I hate that name.
You want to recall? You're talking about Spider-Gwen.
I am talking about Spider-Gwen.
Yeah. Who's actually called Spider-Woman.
Yes. Yeah. So I understand why you want to rebrand her as Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider is a real spider. And it is the only, it's sort of clear and eerie. I understand it, but I don't have to like
it. By the way, we should talk about this real quick before we get too far away from Miles. Sorry to interrupt your lesson. You've heard these weird rumors that they're going to rename Miles Spidey.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, for like
it's terrible.
Year.
Yeah, but it's SD with a big Y. Or SPD with a big Y. Like, so he's Spy, SPY with a D.
Oh, I almost swore.
Yeah, like, so he's Spy D.
Well, you know what? Marvel Comics isn't in a good place right now, so.
Okay, anyways, real quick, I know you love Spider-Gwen.
I do.
We have not seen Into the Spider-Verse.
Nope.
I have heard the rumors out there that Ghost Spider is where she gets called it for the first time, is in this movie.
Well, considering they are 4 issues into a new title called Ghost Spider, I very much doubt it.
You think the odds are good that they're going to call her Ghost Spider in this movie, or not?
There's already a solo series that's 4 issues published called Ghost Spider.
So you think in the movie I'm asking yes or no.
Yes.
In the movie, you think she's going to be called Ghost Spider?
Yes, but you said that was the first time they were going to call her that. But I was like, no, it was in the comic. There's 4 issues. They're out on stands already.
So, do you like that? Do you not like that? You don't like it?
I don't like it. I understand it because you called her Spider-Woman when she was the only hero on her Earth.
Yep.
You called her Spider-Gwen because there was already a title called Spider-Woman. And Ghost Spider is something that's different. It doesn't directly tie her to any other. There's no brand confusion there. A Ghost Spider is actually a little clear spider.
And she's white.
I just don't.
Or her costume's white, I mean.
Both.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
Okay, well, why is Spider-Gwen? I like Spider-Gwen the best. That's my favorite title of her, even though I'm not technically title appropriate. But why is Spider-Gwen number one?
Right. So I will fully admit that if we were making objective lists, which we're not.
No, it's favorites.
Miles would top that list.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not trying to take anything away from that. But for me, it's just my list, and there's no way that I was not putting Gwen Stacy right on the top. If you haven't listened to our Gwen Stacy lesson, it's actually a pretty early one. It was I think it was the week after Edge of Spider-Verse dropped. Edge of Spider-Verse number 2, which is her debut.
It was in the middle of Spider-Verse.
Because I was so excited about it.
That title blew up.
It's great.
Yep. The issue's worth a lot of money now, too, I think.
Which is really funny because we could not sell it. I have really loved the character that she's evolved into. I've loved watching her come into her own. The creators took a character like Jason Todd, like Bucky Barnes, that was defined by her death. She existed for so long in such a very particular box, and by instilling her with spider powers and an alternate universe version of Peter's origin, because in her universe, Peter dies, and she's responsible for it. She views herself as responsible
Peter's
for it.
the lizard?
Yes, because Peter's obsessed with Spider-Woman, who he doesn't know is Gwen. So he wants to give himself powers to be like her, and they fight, and he dies by accident.
Oh.
It's only made her more and more incredible and more thrilling to read. There are a bunch of Lady Spider comics characters who have come before Spider-Gwen, like Jessica Drew, like Mayday. But for me, Gwen was the first to come along that felt like something close to a reflection of who I was and where I was at my life in the time. And so that's why I identify with her a lot more, and why she has stuck with me in a way that none of the other Spider-Verse characters have to date. A lot of it, of course, is the design. Her costume is amazing. Her costume, designed by Jason Latour, incredible artist, is the most daring and different, even compared to like Silk. It's the biggest divergence from the classic Ditko design, but it's so great. The colors, I think, are a big part of it. Everything about Gwen feels cool and contemporary and modern and evocative from a character who, and I always loved her when she was just Gwen Stacy, the girl who died. Like, she's always just been a character I've really liked. Gwen Stacy, the girl who dies in the 616, is very proper, very buttoned up, very conservative, and very sort of sad. So to take her and make her the opposite of that makes her feel more modern than I think a lot of the characters, because all Spider-Man stories are a little bit stuck in the 1960s. And I think that's true of all characters, and when they were designed, you're always going to have, it's like people accusing Superman of being too much of a Boy Scout. Well, that's because he was created in the 30s. So you're always going to have one foot back in that reality.
I think it's amazing, too, that all these variations of Steve Ditko's original design just look amazing.
They all look amazing.
We've liked every one of these costumes.
And Gwen is the first one to put a hood on it, which is in no way practical, but boy...
Not for somebody that's swinging.
But boy, does it look super cool. And I think the strength of her character and the impact in the larger pop culture, not even just comic book, but the larger pop culture zeitgeist, can be seen by the fact that this character is 4 years old and has already been in the animated series. It's going to be in Spider-Verse. It took her, now part of it is part and parcel of when she was created, but it's taken her less time to break through that barrier than it did for Miles Morales.
Yep.
There's also the reading that it's because she's white, and I'm willing to give that an acknowledgement as well. But Gwen is just simply the character that I like the best and that I connect to the most. So I had to put her as my number one. I just think she's so cool.
Cool.
How about you, Jason? Who is cool. I thought your number one was going to be Miles.
Oh, really?
Unless it's...
Who do you think it is?
Ben Reilly.
It is Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, a.k.a.
You just yelled so loud you woke up our cat.
The real Spider-Man. Yeah, I said it. The real
Cindy Min's boyfriend?
Spider-Man. That's right.
Dun, 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 dun,
Travel
dun.
back to the 90s with me, my friends. And there was a time where Peter Parker found himself on a rooftop looking into the face of another Peter Parker.
All right, William Shatner.
And William Shatner. I don't know where you're going with that.
We had a lot of dramatic pauses there.
I'll make a real dramatic pause here. That Peter Parker said to the other Peter Parker, I'm the real Peter Parker.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Yes. So there was a time in the 90s when they brought back the clone from the 70s or 80s, and it was the clone that's been missing since the 70s. And this clone came back. He had longer hair, and he had taken the name of Ben Reilly after Uncle Ben and the maiden name of Aunt May.
I love that.
And it was revealed through a genetic test that he was the real Peter Parker, and that the Peter Parker that we'd been reading for the last 15 years was the clone. The Peter Parker that fell in love and married Mary Jane was the clone. And so the clone Peter Parker left, and Ben Reilly dyed his hair blonde, got a badass costume redesign from Mark Bagley, which I think is one of the best Spider-Man costume designs of all time, putting his web shooters on the outside.
Also, second name drop of Mark Bagley this episode.
Mark Bagley is one of the best Spider-Man artists of all time. He's definitely in the top 5 there with Steve Ditko, easily.
You can request that episode at GHL Podcast.
Oh, top 5 Spider-Man artists? That'd be a fun episode. Although for a podcast, it'd be hard to do a visual. But, whatever. Hey, request it.
We can do it.
So... Scarlet Spider, first off, we got to talk about that. When he first showed up and he decided to web up, he became the Scarlet Spider, which he had an all red suit. He had a hoodie. He was the first Spider character to put on a hood.
Okay, you're right.
And head of Spider-Gwen. And, it is a ridiculous 90s costume. But here's the thing. When they made the new Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider costume, they asked Mark Bagley, who designed the first Scarlet Spider costume, to redesign a Scarlet Spider costume with a hood or something like that. He did. He did a modern update of that version. Everyone hated it. And everyone said, hey, why don't you just put him back in the awesome 90s costume? Because that's the one we love. So Marvel did. And it became a part of that storyline to put him back. That he was like, oh, this is a temporary costume, blah, 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 blah. Ben Reilly, there is a series of Spider-Man fans, just like there is a series of Star Wars fans who only know the prequels. There are a series of Spider-Man fans who their Spider-Man was Ben Reilly. And a lot of people want to forget the Clone Saga and everything like that. And I do too. I hate the Clone Saga. But I like the Sensational Spider-Man, which was the title that was created for Ben Reilly, written by Dan Jurgens and drawn by Mark Bagley and John Romita Jr. and all those guys. That was my first Spider-Man comic book, was Sensational Spider-Man #1. It was the first one I ever read. And or the first one I really remember tracking with me. And so for me, Ben Reilly has always been, like, in my head, like one of the best Spider-Man characters. And I don't like that they brought him back sort of as a villain, but like when he popped up in Spider-Verse, I mean, there's a reason why the Scarlet Spider costume is the 5th costume you can unlock in Spider-Man PS4, because they knew that's a costume that people wanted. You want to know
true or false, Jason? Do you own a Scarlet Spider hoodie?
True, I do. I do own a Scarlet Spider hoodie. Ashley, look to your left. I have a Scarlet Spider pop, and I also have a Scarlet Spider action. I have 2 Scarlet Spider action figures.
So you have more Scarlet Spider action figures than 2099 and Miles.
Yep, because I have him as Spider-Man and I have him as Scarlet Spider.
Oh yeah.
But there is a reason why people wanted his costume in that game. Miles' costume is not in that game. Now, I realize Miles is also in that game, and it'd be weird to have Peter wear Miles' costume, but still, past Spider-Man games have done that.
Yeah, Gwen's costume isn't in that game either.
Well, I'm going to say this. Spider-Man 2099's costume's in there, and it's a little weird to hear Peter talking out of Spider-Man 2099's costume.
Yeah.
Even though I love Spider-Man 2099, I don't generally put that costume on Peter.
I would have loved it if they had just made a whole skin that was a feminine Gwen body, but it was Yuri's voice coming out of it.
But the interesting thing about Ben Reilly to me is that he is as close to Peter as you get without being, with still being an alternate, because he is Peter. He's Peter.
And listeners, I will let you know that we did go back and forth about, are we going to let any of the clones be counted in this? But I feel like Ben Reilly's impact transcends him being a clone.
I agree with you. And I think Ben Reilly has had enough adventures as not Peter.
Yes, yeah.
And then more as Ben Reilly. So I think that's why we have to let it count.
Ties directly into your number 5 as well.
Exactly. I forgot who my number 5 was.
Mayday.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes. So yeah, there is. I mean, here's the other thing. Ben Reilly is the Spider-Man who fought in Marvel versus DC, and just let you know. And,
that's fun.
And beat Superboy Connell. So I
don't believe that, though.
So he's the only alternate Spider who's beaten Superman. There you go. I just said it. And that's why he's number 1. I don't know. I just love Ben Reilly. And
well, it's funny because with both of our number 1 characters, like it comes down to like I just love this character.
Both blondes.
Yeah.
But also, when we first came up with this list and we said best alternate Spider-Man, to me it's Scarlet Spider, because he is the one that I think makes the most impact, more than Miles. Now That's fair. I think Miles. I think
Miles' impact is more to like the larger zeitgeist and pop culture, but to the character of Spider-Man, I understand what you think. But when
Scarlet Spider showed up, it changed everything. Everything in Spider-Man's world changed, just like Otto Octavius. But Scarlet Spider did it first, and that to me is why he's number 1. And plus, his costume is awesome. Every one of these were like, their costume is awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Cool.
All right, now before we get into our recommended reading, we have to give a quick shout out to our final sponsor, the sponsor of Storyworth. Now, Ashley, I'm going to tell you about this. This is actually really cool. I'd never heard of this before. Now, Storyworth is a company that makes it easy and fun for your loved ones to share their stories with weekly emailed story prompts and questions that you'd never thought to ask. So what you do is you sign up for Storyworth. And you'd be like, I want to, talk to my mom. So you give your mom's email to Storyworth. They email your mom these interesting prompts and stuff like that. Questions that you never think about, like, what's your favorite food, or do you like pizza? Like, I'm certain they have better questions than that. At the end of the year, they'll take your mom or your loved one's responses and bind them into a hardcover book. And gives you like a story of their life. It's amazing. So basically, you purchase a subscription for someone you love. Each week, they give them the email. There's a question about their life. And the cool thing is that this was founded by a guy who wanted his dad to record his amazing stories about his life before he was gone. It's pretty amazing. And it doesn't have to be just email. It can also be you can give them a phone number that they can call. All the stories are private and will only be shared with the family member that you choose. This is pretty amazing. I think this is really cool. I would love to do this with a lot of my family members, because you never know like what surprising or sometimes movie responses they would give to some of these answers. So for $20 off this really cool service, go to Storyworth, that's StoryWorth.com/geekhistory. When you subscribe, and then you'll help the podcast out, and also you'll get this really, really cool gift. I think it's pretty awesome.
It could be a potential holiday gift for yourself and for your loved one.
That's right. All right, now let's go into the recommended reading. What's that, Ashley?
Recommended reading is where Professor Jason and I are going to recommend some great books that you can pick up in case you're intrigued by what we talked about here on the podcast. You can find this and all of our recommended reading at geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You click the Amazon widget, you buy the thing you're interested in, and a little bit of support comes back our way without an extra dollar to you.
Okay, so since we have a list of characters and we can't really pick the stories on the top, what are our choices for recommended reading here?
So our choices for recommended reading are the ones that they're catch-alls, because a lot of these characters we do have lessons on, and we have recommended reading for Silk, we have it for Miles, we have it for Gwen. So we're trying
Ben Reilly. We haven't done a Ben Reilly episode.
Please request a Ben Reilly episode. We actually have requests for one, I'm not going to lie.
We do. Oh my god.
Jason's going to read them in his creepy old man voice.
Peter Parker.
The entire time. So these are catch-all stories where you get to see these characters interact, because that's what is so cool. So our first recommendation is Spider-Verse, where so many of these characters were birthed the first time a lot of them got together to chat to each other. Second recommendation is Web Warriors of the Spider-Verse Volume 1 Electroverse. It is kind of them as a strike team going out into the world.
Yep, I want to talk about that, because that is a direct spin-off of the Spider-Verse event. Spider-Verse you should read just for the movie, but Web Warriors is great because it's a 12-issue series where it teams up these heroes against villains of the multiverse. So Spider-Gwen teams up with Mayday, with Peter Porker, with Spider-Man UK, and other characters like Spider-Man Noir, who we didn't talk about either.
And then our last one, because we needed 3, and this one we haven't recommended anywhere else, Superior Spider-Man Complete Collection Volume 1. This is the nice hardbacks that Marvel does after a series has been especially successful. And if you really want to see the Spider-Man tropes that you know and love knocked on its head, I think this is a great place to start. And we haven't done an Otto Octavius lesson yet.
The die is cast, fool!
We haven't had an opportunity to really highlight this, so I wanted to put this in our recommended reading.
That's cool. All right, great. Go pick up those books. Get some Spidey reading. Next, we're going to move out into the final section of our podcast, the Honor Roll, where if you go over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes and you leave us a 5-star review, not only do you help out this podcast in search algorithms, but we read your response on the air. So you could insult us. You could give a shout out to your grandma who listens to Geek History Lesson.
If your grandma listens to Geek History Lesson,
you're the baddest ass grandma of all time.
Please let us know.
But go over there, help the podcast out, give us a 5-star review. We're going to read what you write on the air. Ashley, who we got?
Today we have 2 new additions. We have Viking King 28, who says GHL should be offered at all colleges. Professor Jason and Professor Ashley are my go-to whenever I need a quick lesson or a recap on some of my all-time favorite characters. My girlfriend and I have spent many road trips listening to GHL, so she can listen in and hear all the geek history has to offer. Thank you, and stay out of the dark dimension!
The dark dimension!
Thank you, Viking King 28, and
hello to his girlfriend,
Viking King 28. I'm very honored that we can join you on road trips, because that's also what Jason and I like to listen to on road trips, not our podcasts, other podcasts.
Yep.
And then joining Viking King 28 is Rhino 4322, and they say outstandingly awesome with 3 exclamation points. This is hands down one of the best podcasts out there with 2 exclamation points. Short and sweet. I love it. Welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. Jason, what do they get to experience in there?
When you come into the Teacher's Lounge, you two, because you're on the honor roll, you get the key to the Teacher's Lounge. You jiggle the key, it opens the door, it creaks very loudly to make sure that nobody's up to any nefarious things. But right on the coffee table are some fruit slices from Mrs. Braddock.
What does Mrs. Braddock teach again?
Mrs. Braddock teaches ancient Egyptian algebra.
Wow.
Yes. Very, very important class here at the Mind University.
Very impressive.
So thank you so much for joining the Honor Roll. And if you want to be like them, remember, go leave 5 stars over on iTunes /Apple Podcasts, and you get to get into the Honor Roll. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast at everywhere where you can listen to podcasts, on Stitcher, on Apple. We're on Spotify, guys. Go listen on Spotify. I actually do that quite a bit for our podcasts when we're not on road trips.
Yeah.
Because I listen to us on Spotify. No, I don't. Anyways, you can do that over there. And actually, if they want to suggest future lessons, like I think we came up with best Spider-Man artists.
And Ben Riley. People can do that at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, and on Twitter at GHL Podcast. There's a bunch of ways to contact us in all of those places. And please use those official Geek History Lesson channels. If you do that on our personal feeds, they'll get lost.
Yep, we won't. We're forgetful.
Yep.
You can follow me on Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin. You can follow Ashley on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson, and follow the podcast on Twitter at GHL Podcast. Ashley just said it. The last section of this podcast, hashtag stick around, where we make sure you stick through all of our plugs.
Yep.
What were we going to talk about? We said something about Otto Octavius or something like that.
We were going to talk about spider characters that we don't like.
Oh, this is a good one. Okay, is there any spider characters you don't like? Man Spider? Or Spider-Man? Spider's Man?
No, I love Spider's Man.
Okay.
I saved a picture of Spider's Man with his little introductory caption on my phone, and I laugh for like 30 straight seconds every time I look at it.
If you don't know who Spider's Man is, Spider's Man is 1,000 spiders who are formed into a body who think that they're Peter Parker. I will
read it for you. It is so good. Because I'm not reading Spider-Geddon, and a friend of the pod who's probably listening, Adam Drozen, is the one who brought him to my attention.
He also comes from a Garth Ennis story called Tangled Web.
Does he?
Yep. Or he's inspired by that.
Is he?
I don't know. Are we vamping until
maybe
Ashley can't find her picture?
I deleted it, but
Ashley
it's like
deleted her picture?
Yeah, it's like 1,000 sentient spiders that all believe that they are Peter Parker.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh my god!
I basically said that.
So funny. Oh, here it is.
I don't think we need the panel.
Thousands of spiders that believe they are Peter Parker of Earth 11580, and it kind of looks like Spider-Man, but he's got weird, creepy spiders.
Yeah, we basically got that.
Really funny.
Who do you hate? What spider characters do you hate?
I was thinking. Oh, I hate Six-Armed Spider-Man.
Oh, interesting.
He's really scary.
So you hate Peter Parker?
Don't like him. They put him in the animated series, and I was really scared of him.
They're making a Marvel Legends of that, and I'm buying it so quick.
He might be the only one that I hate. I don't know if I hate it. Are there any that come to mind for you?
Interesting. I don't really hate many of them either.
I mean, I hate Madam Web, but I don't know if she counts.
I'm not a huge fan of Jessica Drew, as have been established.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm not a huge fan of the Spider Girl from Old Man Logan, who shows up in Spider-Verse.
Her name is Ashley.
Is it?
Yeah.
She's like Hawkeye's daughter.
Yeah.
She has a cool design.
I was like, don't you have an action figure of her?
We do. And here's the thing. I like Spider-Man Noir. I don't love him. I think he has a cool design.
He does have a cool design. I don't know if he transcends the design. That is, of the Noir line of books, that is one that a lot of people really liked.
It's the best one of the books.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Oh, really? Which one do you like of the Noir books?
I like the X-Men one a lot.
I didn't think any of them were any good, to be honest with you.
Did you read the Daredevil one?
No.
The Daredevil one is good.
All right, cool. All right, so you hate Spider-Man Noir. Or I hate Spider-Man Noir.
You hate Spider-Man
I hate Spider-Man Noir. Who do you hate? Man Spider?
The guy with 6 arms.
Yeah, Man Spider.
Sure.
Yep. Spider-Man has 6 arms. You basically you hate Peter Parker.
There's always some topless dude at San Diego Comic-Con with 4 papier-mâché arms tied together with fishing string.
What kind of arms?
Papier-mâché.
Okay.
And that's how it's pronounced.
Okay, sure.
And I want to push him over every time I see him. I think it's a different guy every time.
Peter Parker. All right, so that has been it for this weird, kind of all over the place geek history lesson. I am Jason, the web spinner Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. And Professor Jason, would you and the thousands of sentient spiders that make you up dismiss the class?
I'm Peter Parker.